It all started with a smile, not the genuine kind. The kind that masks tension like a curtain drawn over a storm. The audience of The View was clapping. The lights were blazing, and the air was thick with anticipation. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, had just stepped onto the set, dressed in a fitted navy suit. His expression was calm but guarded. He had done this before. Interviews, spotlights, heated questions, dressed as polite conversation. But this felt different. The studio buzzed with something unseen. Like the silence before thunder. Joy Behar leaned forward in her chair. Her tone was warm, almost too warm. "We are so thrilled to have Prince Harry on the show today. Welcome, Your Highness." Or is it just Harry now? The audience chuckled. Harry smiled faintly. "Just Harry is fine. I left the titles back in London." The crowd clapped again, though there was an unmistakable ripple of curiosity in the air. Everyone knew this wasn't going to be a fluff piece. Not today. A few feet away, Whoopi Goldberg nodded quietly. Sunny Hostin glanced at her cards. Anna Navarro leaned in, curious. But it was Joy, sharp, seasoned, unapologetically bold, who had taken center stage from the moment he walked in. The smile on Harry's face was tight. The kind that says, "I know where this is headed." And deep down, he probably did. Come to talk about his latest advocacy work. Mental health. Veterans. Purpose after pain. But it was never just about that, was it? Because in America, and especially in media, when a prince gives up a palace, it's not a redemption story. It's a question mark. A mystery people want to solve. And today, Joy Behar was ready to dig. The first few questions were easy, predictable, even. "You've talked openly about mental health. How are you doing, really? How's Meghan adjusting to life out of the public eye, or into a different one? Do you ever miss it?" "The royal life," Harry answered. Them.com, measured. His voice had that familiar blend of British politeness and California introspection. He talked about therapy, about reconnecting with his purpose, about how his kids, Archie and Lilibet, gave his life meaning in a way Buckingham Palace never could. But Joy wasn't done. She leaned forward, her glasses catching the studio lights. "Okay, but let's be honest here," she said, her tone suddenly sharpening. "You left one of the most powerful families on earth. And now you're doing Netflix shows and writing tell-all books. Doesn't that feel a little contradictory?" A hush fell over the audience. Even Whoopi raised her eyebrows. Harry's smile didn't falter, but his eyes, they changed. The tension shifted. You could feel it. Like a wave pulling back before it crashes. He paused before speaking. "Joy, I understand the criticism. But nothing I've done has been for fame. Everything I've said, everything I've done, has been about truth. My truth. My family's truth." There was a silence. Then Joy fired again. "But truth isn't always just your version, is it? Some people, including your own family, say what you've done is hurtful. Some say you're burning down bridges and playing the victim while sitting in a California mansion." The air turned cold. Even the laughter in the audience dried up. Harry's jaw clenched. "Just slightly. I didn't come here to burn anything down," he said quietly. "I came here because silence was killing me." Joy tilted her head. Or maybe silence wasn't profitable. That line didn't land like a question. It landed like a punch. Whoopi looked stunned. Anna blinked. Sunny shuffled her cue cards but said nothing. The crowd gave an awkward gasp. Harry looked down for a moment. Took a breath. When he looked up, his eyes were sharper. No longer the polite guest. No longer the groomed royal. This was the soldier. The son. The man who'd buried his mother beneath the crushing weight of paparazzi. Flashes and tabloid lies. "You think I enjoy any of this?" he said. "You think I want to relive my trauma so that people can dissect it on morning television?" His voice had risen, only slightly. But in a room used to cheerful banter and daytime fluff, it rang out like thunder. The silence was thick. You could hear the cameras humming. A cough from the back of the studio. Then, slowly a murmur in the crowd. Not laughter this time. Not applause. Just the kind of uncomfortable shifting that happens when people realize something real is happening. Joy leaned back in her chair, visibly caught off guard. But she wasn't one to back down. "Look, Harry, I'm not trying to attack you," she said, tone softening barely. "But the world watched you leave a centuries-old institution and then jump straight into another kind of media circus. People are confused. People are hurt. And yes, people are watching to see if you're more than just a symbol of rebellion." Harry looked at her, then at the crowd, then at the cameras. "Maybe I am a symbol," he said. but not of rebellion, of consequence, of what happens when a system forgets the human beings inside it. And for a moment, just a moment, there was quiet understanding. Even Joy Behar didn't speak. But the storm hadn't passed. It had just begun. The cameras kept rolling, but the temperature in the room had dropped. Harry shifted in his seat, his fingers slightly twitching against his pant leg. You could tell he wasn't just uncomfortable. He was bracing. Joy Behar wasn't finished. Harry, I want to go back to something you said just now. About the system forgetting the people inside it, she said, calmly but deliberately. You're talking about the monarchy, right? Your family. He nodded, slowly. Yes. Joy leaned in, her voice lowered. So let's be honest. When you and Meghan did that Oprah interview, that was a bombshell. You accused unnamed members of your family, your blood, of racism, of cruelty. Some people felt that crossed a line. The audience gasped softly. Even Sunny Hostin gave Joy a sideways glance. Whoopi stayed quiet, her expression unreadable. Harry's face tightened, but his voice stayed steady. No names were mentioned, because it wasn't about calling anyone out. It was about pointing at something bigger. A system. A culture of silence. Joy shook her head slightly. But you did call them out. Just indirectly. And now we have books, podcasts, Netflix deals, all of it based on pain. Do you see how that might feel like betrayal? To your family. To the institution you were born into. Harry blinked slowly. The cameras zoomed in. His voice, when it came, was low, but full of weight. Betrayal is letting someone suffer in silence, because it's easier than facing the truth. There was a pause. A deep one. You could feel a shift. Not in Joy, not yet, but in the audience. Some began to nod. Some didn't. It was a divide, growing in real time. Joy pressed forward. But Harry, what about your father, your brother? Aren't you worried about the damage you've done? That was it. The question. The one that sliced through the polished decorum and cracked open something raw. Harry looked up. His voice shook. Do you know what it's like to walk behind your mother's coffin, in front of millions of people? At 12 years old, to have strangers treat your grief like entertainment. The studio was silent. Do you know what it's like to ask for help, and be told that feeling anything is weakness? That therapy is shameful? That your tears make the institution look bad? He was breathing heavier now. Not in anger, in heartbreak. I tried so hard to make peace, to do things quietly. But every time I stayed silent, they fed stories to the press. Every time I took the high road, they built another narrative. His voice dropped to a near whisper. Eventually, silence wasn't dignity. It was surrender. Joy's jaw tightened. She wasn't unmoved, but she wasn't letting go. But there are people who say you're profiting off that pain. That you and Meghan are playing victims while sitting in a mansion bought by the very system you criticize. Harry's eyes flickered. He looked away. His next words were slow, deliberate. I'd give it all up. The money, the deals. If I could have my mother back. If I could have protected Meghan from the same hate. If I could have raised my kids without fearing the same headlines. Then he turned toward Joy. You think this is easy? You think it doesn't cost me everything to sit here and be torn apart again and again, just for trying to live honestly? The words hung in the air like smoke. For once, Joy didn't reply, but Anna Navarro spoke. Harry, can I say something? He turned to her, nodding. I come from a family with a lot of dysfunction, she said gently. We've screamed, we've hurt each other, but we've also forgiven. Do you ever see a future where you and William repair things? Harry's expression softened. A flicker of the boy he used to be crossed his face. I hope so, he said. He's my brother. We went through hell together. But forgiveness takes honesty. It takes accountability. And right now, I don't see either. Whoopi finally chimed in. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight. You've been painted in so many ways, Harry. As a hero, as a villain, as lost, as found. But who are you, really, when the cameras are off? He smiled, just barely. I'm a father who tucks in his kids every night. A husband who's learning how to be better. A man who stopped pretending so his son wouldn't have to. The audience murmured. A few people clapped quietly. But Joy wasn't done. She adjusted her glasses, voice sharpening again. Okay, but here's my issue. Harry, you say you want peace, but you keep stirring the pot. Books, interviews. Now there's talk of another documentary. How is that healing? Harry looked at her. Tired, not angry, just tired. Telling the truth isn't stirring the pot. It's cleaning up the mess that was already there. Joy raised her eyebrows. But do you ever worry that, maybe, Just maybe, you're becoming what you once hated. A media figure, selling stories. The words cut deep. Too deep. You could see it in Harry's eyes. The pain, the humiliation, the quiet rage. He inhaled, slowly, deliberately. This was a mistake, he said, more to himself than anyone else. The entire panel froze. Excuse me, Joy asked, confused. This interview, he said. Coming here. Thinking I'd be heard. He stood. The audience gasped. Whoopi stood up slightly, trying to motion him back. Harry, wait, no, he said. I've had enough of being treated like a circus act. My pain isn't for your ratings. My family isn't your entertainment. Joy stood too. Defensive now. Nobody's trying to exploit you. Yes, you are, he said. You all are. Just like they always have. He looked directly into the camera. To anyone watching, I hope you understand something. I didn't walk away from my family. I walked away from a system that was killing me. And today proves I made the right choice. Then he turned and walked off set. No security, no handlers. Just Harry, exiting the frame like a man who finally realized the room was never built to hear him. The audience sat in stunned silence. And on the set of The View, no one quite knew what to say next. The cameras kept rolling even after Harry disappeared behind the curtain. Producers scrambled off screen. A few stagehands stood frozen, unsure whether to cut to commercial or keep the feed live. Back on stage, the silence was deafening. Joy sat back down slowly, hands clasped together. She wasn't rattled easily, not after decades in television, but even she looked shaken. Her lips were pressed in a tight line. Not angry, not smug, just ... stunned. Whoopi spoke first. Okay, wow. Her voice was soft, her tone serious. That wasn't just a walk-off. That was a moment. Sunny Hostin broke the silence next. We pushed him, she said quietly. Too far. Anna Navarro nodded solemnly. He came here with pain. And we poked at it like it was theater. For once, even the famously unfiltered Joy Behar hesitated. I didn't mean to ambush him. I was doing what I always do. Asking hard questions. There's a difference, Whoopi said, looking directly at her. Between asking questions and questioning someone's pain. The audience murmured. There were no cheers, no applause, just reflection. A rare kind of stillness on daytime TV. Behind the scenes, Harry was in a narrow hallway, lined with cables and black curtains. His mic was still on. The producer tried to approach him gently, headset in hand. Harry, I'm so sorry, don't, he said, holding up his hand. I should have known better. He reached behind his collar and pulled off the mic pack. The adhesive strip snapped. He didn't flinch. Can we get you anything? The producer asked quietly. Harry didn't respond. He stared down the hallway, toward the exit, but he didn't leave. Not yet. In the green room, Meghan was waiting. She stood, as soon as she saw him. Her face was tense, not surprised, just ... Heartbroken. She reached for his hand. You okay? Harry shook his head, barely able to speak. They turned it into a trap. Meghan nodded slowly, stepping closer. They always do. He sat down heavily on the couch, shoulders slumped, face pale. I thought maybe this time would be different. She knelt beside him, her hand resting on his. It is different, she said softly. You walked away before they could strip you down again. He looked, Batter really looked, and something in his face cracked open. Not anger, not pride, just a raw, weary grief. I'm so tired, Meg, I know. Meanwhile, back on stage, the panel was trying to find their footing. Whoopi turned to the camera. To our viewers at home, we want to acknowledge what just happened. Joy leaned forward. Look, I pushed. Maybe too far. That's on me, Sunny added. But maybe it's also on us, the media, the public, for turning pain into performance. Anna nodded solemnly. We asked for honesty. He gave it. And when it made us uncomfortable, we called it contradiction. Whoopi paused. Her voice dropped. There's something deeply wrong with how we consume trauma, especially from people we think we know. Royals, celebrities, politicians. We forget they bleed like the rest of us. The audience was silent, listening, feeling. That's when the feed unexpectedly cut to the green room. Someone, likely a panicked producer, had flipped the wrong switch. Harry and Meghan appeared on screen for a few seconds, just long enough. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't throwing anything. He was holding Meghan's hand, crying quietly, head down, shoulders shaking. The feed cut. Back to the stage. Dead silence. A lump formed in Whoopi's throat. She looked away. blinked fast. Joy swallowed hard. For the first time, her voice cracked. He wasn't acting. No one disagreed. They couldn't. Because in that single moment, everything changed. The royal drama, the tabloid stories, the TV debates, all of it collapsed under the weight of one undeniable truth. Prince Harry wasn't here to perform. He was here to be heard. And when he wasn't, he walked away. Outside the studio, the press was already gathering. Word had spread like wildfire. Prince Harry storms off the View. Joy Behar clashes with the Duke of Sussex. Royal meltdown on live TV. But none of those headlines would capture the truth. Not really. Because what happened on that stage wasn't a meltdown. It was a breaking point. And when someone hits their breaking point in front of millions, the world has no choice but to listen. The next morning, the headlines weren't just loud, they were everywhere. Prince Harry's emotional exit shocks the View. Joy Behar faces backlash. After heated interview, silence was killing me. Prince Harry opens up, then walks out. Clips from the interview flooded social media. Within hours, it had gone viral. People weren't just reacting. They were arguing, mourning, defending, accusing. One video in particular hit millions of views by noon. It was a single sentence. One the world hadn't seen live, only on the feed that accidentally cut to the green room. Harry, through tears. I'm so tired, Meg. No rehearsed soundbite, no clever reply. Just raw, exhausted honesty. People saw it. And something shifted. That night, Joy Behar released a statement. It was short, unpolished, and surprisingly real. I've spent my life asking questions. I don't always get it right. Yesterday, I didn't. I forgot that behind every headline is a human being. To Prince Harry, I'm sorry. It wasn't a pre-polished apology, but it was something. The View aired a follow-up segment the next day. No jokes. No audience applause. Just the panel seated, quiet, speaking from somewhere deeper than usual. Whoopi spoke first. We want to talk about what happened yesterday, because it wasn't just a walk-off. It was a wake-up call. Sonny Hostin nodded. We often talk about truth here, but when someone gives it to us, unfiltered, it can be hard to handle. Joy sat between them, quiet. Then she spoke. I've interviewed presidents, activists, celebrities. I've challenged people. That's my job. But yesterday reminded me. Sometimes, people don't need to be challenged. They need to be heard. The audience didn't clap. Not yet. It didn't feel right. Instead, there was something else. Respect, quiet reflection. A day later, Harry and Meghan released their own statement. We went on The View, hoping for a conversation. We walked away feeling dismissed. But sometimes walking away is the only way to protect your peace. We hold no resentment. We just hope this moment reminds people. Healing deserves more space than judgment. It was signed simply. Harry and Meghan. That message went further than anyone expected. Advocacy groups reposted it. Therapists quoted it. Survivors of trauma, men and women, shared stories of walking out of toxic homes, boardrooms, relationships. Not to be dramatic, not to be difficult, but to survive. That walk-off had become something more. It had become a symbol back in Montecito. Harry sat in the garden behind their home. The California sun filtered through the trees. Lilibet played nearby. Archie was painting something messy on a tiny easel. Meghan came outside with tea. She handed him a cup, then sat beside him, still feeling it. She asked. Harry gave a small, tired smile. Everywhere, every word, every glare, every sigh. You told your truth, she said gently. And it nearly broke me. Again, she looked at him for a long moment. But he didn't break. He sipped his tea, watched his children. His voice dropped to a whisper. When I left that studio, I thought I'd regret it. Do you? He paused. No. For the first time in a long time. I think I finally honored myself. The next day, something unexpected happened. Buckingham Palace issued a rare statement. It was brief, carefully worded, but it mattered. We remain concerned for the well-being of all members of our family. Prince Harry will always be loved. No denial, no cold rebuttal, just a small bridge, not built, but extended. And maybe that was enough. In the weeks that followed, the conversation shifted. Not about royalty, not about celebrity, but about pain, about men allowed to cry, about walking away when spaces become toxic, about dignity. Podcasts debated it. Journalists re-evaluated past interviews. Late-night hosts made jokes, but softer ones. Even the harshest critics began to admit. Maybe the narrative had been too cruel. Too convenient. Maybe Harry hadn't walked off in weakness. Maybe he walked off in power. One Sunday morning, a little boy in Kansas watched a clip of the walk-off with his mum. He was 8. He had been bullied for crying at school, for saying he missed his dad who died the year before. When the clip ended, he looked up at his mother. He cried too, he said. Like me. His mom nodded. And he kept going. She said, just like you will. That boy didn't know what the monarchy was, didn't care about media deals or titles, but he saw something in that moment. And he understood it. And somewhere, maybe that meant Harry's story. His pain had mattered. After all, not because it was televised. Not because it was royal, but because it was human. The kind of truth that cuts through titles and leaves behind something stronger than silence. Voice.